For almost 40 years, Kevin Yagher has been wowing audiences with his creations, from defining an icon in the Nightmare on Elm Street series to creating the ultimate killer doll in Child's Play. Kevin Yagher has earned his place as an effects legend who brought to life a headless horseman, took us to hell on a bogus journey, and now asks us to face the music in the latest addition to the Bill and Ted story. Join Dan Lacey as he welcomes Kevin to Real People. So, Kevin, everyone knows you from your movies. The effects guy for Chucky and Freddy, and as well as obviously Bill and Ted. I'm going to go into that later. Can we just sort out, have a look at where it all started for you? What were your early influences? What made you go to LA in the first place?
Yeah, as a child, I mean, I have an older brother named Jeff. He's a sculptor. He actually works for me. He sculpted one of the Bill and Ted bodies back here for me. And he and I were just since at an early age interested in monsters, the classics, the Frankenstein, werewolf, the mummy, all those guys, Creature like Cocoon, we love. And, he was actually a bigger fan of it than I was. I just kind of followed his lead. I was a year and a half younger, so he would do things like he'd go out and buy all the model kits, and then I would watch him, and then I was old enough to buy one myself. Actually, we went and bought our first model kits together. I had Frankenstein, he had the mummy. But what I meant was he would buy these magazines, Monsterland and Famous Monsters and all that stuff. And I would be able to save my money and kind of piggyback on him. So he was kind of the leader in that. And then we just were very competitive, but in a healthy way. We were, we tried to impress each other. I remember, he came back even all the way into college. He'd come back where they had this beautiful Frankenstein mask they had done of Boris Karloff Frankenstein. And I said, "Oh, great, that's fantastic." I said, "Here's an old age makeup that I did." And he would be like, "Crap," we would. You've advanced in 6 months since I was back from school. So we'd always try to beat each other. So it was a great having a partner like that. It was a great way to have. We got along, and then we didn't get along just like normal brothers. But I have another brother too that works for me, a younger brother, Chris, that works for me. But so we just were very competitive, and that's how I kind of got interested in classic monsters. And then it was just kind of like as a hobby, doing it as a kid. We would make 8mm films. We'd do stop motion animation. We'd turn our GI Joes into stop motion, cycles from Seventh Voyage of Bad, or I remember I wanted to turn mine into King Kong, and he was working on the Seventh Voyage. So we do these things. But one time we did the stop motion, doing this animation, and Jeff brought his 6 weeks of work on a little undeveloped film, and we took it to the local CVS, or the local drugstore that developed film. And the woman opened the canister to see what it was and exposed all the film. And I thought, that's 6 weeks of film gone. And he had to then start over and everything. It was painful. And I went, there's got to be a faster way to do monsters and not have this thing happen. So I started leaning towards doing more makeups at that. But it wasn't until high school I went in. I did all the I was acting in high school, but also doing all Alice in Wonderland. I was the March Hare, doing all the different makeups too in the show. So I got a lot of I dug makeup, but I wasn't I was just still thinking about being a commercial artist or a cartoonist. Something I wanted to animate, work at Disney by Tim Burton ended up doing. So that was my kind of dream at first. And then, again, makeup was just something I just loved to do. I got great responses from people when I dressed myself up and Halloween, all that. And it wasn't then until high school I went to see a drama teacher. It was getting ready for the summer play, and I had just graduated, I believe, or maybe I was 17, 18. And I came in as an old man, and he introduced me to a fellow student as his grandfather. And then he actually completely fooled this girl. And I thought it was a magic to that. It was just like you felt empowered. You created something that didn't exist, and then you were acting in it, and you were pulling it off. And I thought, I've got to do this. And so then everything I read, was like, oh, you'll make some money. It's a hard business to get into, So I decided to write several people, and I wrote Rob Bottin, not first in line. The first person I wrote was Dick Smith, and then Rick Baker, and then Rob Bottin. Those were like my three that I wanted to work for or wanted some advice from. Rick's mom got back to me and said Rick he's in London doing Greystoke, and Rob Bottin never answered me back. And then Dick Smith wrote me back and said, you show some promise. I mean, a lot of the stuff I get is not that good. Kids from all over. He said, you really have something here. You should maybe consider doing this for a living. And he said, you can't be in Ohio. That's where I'm from, Ohio, Midwest. He said, you got to be either New York or California. And by the time I talked to him on the phone, I said, well, funny enough, I think I'm convincing my mother to move us out there. So my parents had divorced, so she wanted a new life and wanted to move on. So we ended up moving into to LA, and from then on, I went to see Greg Canham. I got on to do a thriller with Rick Baker. We were all working together, and it was just like this wave. It just took off. I couldn't believe it. Was like you're a kid in Ohio one moment, you come out, and you hang out, on the beach in California. You put on your tan. You get a call to Greg Canham and said, Dick Smith told me to call you, and I heard he was going to be working on The Howling 2, and I thought, I got to get on that. I have to get on that. And so I wasn't sure if Rick was back in town yet from Greystoke. So anyway, the next thing you know, Greg hired me, and the rest is history, as it were. And I just started working in the business for Greg, and then I worked for Stan Winston, and I worked for Baker, and even a little bit for Tom Savini. So I was working with Tom on Friday the 13th Part 4. And I got to paint all the appliances. Jim Cagle sculpted them. Got to put them, paint them, and also put them on Ted White. So that was my first horror icon that I was involved with. Then Greg Canham actually got the script of Nightmare on Elm Street 1, and he couldn't make a money deal, I think. And then it went to Dave Miller, and then later, and I was working for Stan. And I said, listen, he hired me. He saw this old age makeup I did on another effects guy, Alec Gillis. And he said, this is really good. He said, you want a job? And I said, kind of, yeah, sort of, okay, yeah. So I took a job. We started working on, I think it was an Invasion from Mars or Mars Attack. Mars Attack. It's one of those. Invasion from Mars, I think. Anyway. And I told him, I said, listen, there's only one thing. I'm meeting with the people on Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And if that happens, I'm going to have to leave. And certainly he said, fine, because he didn't think it would happen. And of course it did. I had to go in and give him the talk and say, Stan, I got to get out of here. And I was disappointed, but it worked out. So that's the beginning things that got me started, But I was a fan of monsters since I was really young.
But what a list appears to have, though. See, like for me growing up, so mid 80s, late 80s, seeing those early. I mean, for me, a lot it was the Hammer horror sort of stuff.
Interrupt you. I was going to say that the Hammer films. As kids, Jeff and I, my older brother, we would get to stay up every now and then on our birthdays or something all night, because they would always run those late. I don't know about run them really late because it wasn't proper for prime time. So we would talk our parents into the werewolf is on tonight. Frankenstein, can we please? We'd beg, and we'd always end up falling asleep by the time it was 1 o'clock. We wouldn't see more than one, but the Hammer films, all that stuff, all that black and white stuff, that so influenced us. That was the big thing. That's all and we could only get them every now and then. It's not like you go anywhere, just go online now, order anything you want. Kids are kind of spoiled. They don't realize it. I actually think that helped to encourage us when we couldn't get our hands quite on it. It made us want it even more. And if we couldn't do that, we'll make our own, that kind of thing. So I think not being starved a little bit was a good thing. So because my similar story, my dad used to bring me downstairs in the middle of the night to watch the old Hammer stuff, and I slowly, he was great. It was slowly sort of got to the Amicus side of things, and then the Universal stuff, because we didn't get that as often as what we did the Hammer stuff. The Universal stuff is sort of sparingly, but I fell in love with, as soon as I saw the Universal stuff, I fell in love with that.
The Universal monsters are just epic,
And Jack
fantastic.
Pierce's Mummy did Frankenstein. What else has he done? Tons of stuff, and he was just amazing. That design, and most of it's Karloff's face. Truly, I mean, he's got the thing, but what he did with his sucking in his cheeks, and the way, the half-lit stuff, that was all brilliant, just brilliant stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think that monster still got to be one of my favorites. I think that's why I picked the model kit as a kid. Jeff somehow liked the Mummy, and I was like, no, it's Frankenstein. So, I think it's just one of my favorites. That and Planet of the Apes, that was a big influence too.
I saw the painting he did of Carlos Frankenstein when Alec Gillis did the tour of his studio. Yeah, and it's amazing. It's a stunning piece of work.
You see him always either black and white, or you see him green. And I saw this painting, I think it was a Japanese artist who had done this face or something, not like that. It wasn't a face, something else, like a person, but it was red and black. And I love that negative space on the one side, and the combination of red and black is just classically great, except when you use it in credits, and the credits are red over black, and you can't keep them ever. But it's a great combination, and so I wanted to do that, so that's why I did that kind of a half-faced. Alec came and said, "What is that, a door right there?" No, it's artistic.
So going from there, we're sort of saying about how you left Stan to do Nightmare 2. What was the sort of inspiration between for changing Freddy's look? Because we'd have that sort of original. For me, I think Freddy. Well, Nightmare 2 is my favourite makeup.
I mean, the ones that I did. Yeah.
Yeah, because you did up to. Did you do up to Dream Child?
Did I what?
Did you do up to Dream Child?
Yes. Yeah. Let's see. I did through 4. So I did 2, 3, and 4, which was Dream Warriors, and then I forgot the title. Was that Dream Child? No. Was that Dream Child?
Dream Master.
Dream Master.
Yeah.
And then I did the Freddy series after that. Yeah. So I mean, we did with Nightmare 1. They had $1 million. I think they had maybe 1.2 to 2 million for the second one. I think it was like maybe $1.5 million. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. But they were very low budget, and the first one, it was just a little horror film they were making. Jacques Haitkin was the DP, and he just lit it really dark. And I think still in that spooky phase. You know what I mean? It's before, the comedy comes into play. Yeah. Freddy and Chucky, they all become clowns a little bit.
Yeah.
I do like by the way, we can talk about this, but I do like the horror and comedy, combo, but you have to be careful because it just a joke. Anyway, back then we were still doing the scary lighting stuff, and the first one, it was Jacques also lit that, the first Nightmare on Elm Street, and that was very dark. So I was watching a movie. They screened it for all of us to look at. I couldn't see Freddy very well, and the pictures, I don't even know if they could. I'm sure they had a set photographer, but there were very few pictures available. Dave and I were talking. He was going to do Freddy's makeup and Freddy's effects, and I was going to do what Mark Strosterman ended up doing, the in between effects, and then there was a third level tier of effects, and then it basically came down to not wanting to pay Dave. This happened to me later on the fourth film. If you ask for $2,000 more than what they have, it's weird. They don't come and negotiate with you. They'll just go, "You're too much," and they'll move on.
Yeah, right.
It's strange. You don't get that second, third chance. Like, come on, let's negotiate or whatever. Yeah. And that happened to me on the fourth one. But they did that to Dave. I think they just cut him back. Could have been $2,000 to $5,000, which is nothing, even though it's tight. It's really nothing. Or you just negotiate and say, "Look, we're going to give it to somebody else." So I was the one that had to tell them, they want me to do this. To do the Freddy thing, have you heard anything? Because we were in complete communication the whole time. And he said no. He's, you know what? He was going on other things. He said, F them, basically. They don't appreciate me anyway. And I said, well, they don't want me to do it. I won't do it unless you give me your blessing. And I want you to do it, because if you don't do it, someone else is going to get it, and that's going to make me mad. At least I know you. And then later, I heard through other people, even Dick Smith, he went around saying that I stole the thing, and which I just think he was having a difficult time with adjusting that it wasn't. I went through the same thing on Child's Play. When I left Child's Play, I didn't spread any rumors afterwards, but on Child's Play, when it left you, it's like, that's my baby, right? That's, that's my creation. I did that. And it was hard. It was very, very difficult. So I understood his pain, but he gave me his blessing. I said, I won't do this unless you say it's cool. He said, I want you to do it over anybody else. And then he was basically angry. So he just kind of blew the whole thing off. And that's how I got that, and I was stands at the time, when I got the news. But but I didn't have a whole lot to look at. I didn't have a whole lot of, pictures. I didn't have anything from Dave. He wasn't in production, which is understandable. So I had a couple things out of Fangoria, and mostly they're overly lit. So front and overly lit. And in the end, I had to just kind of, all I wanted to do was bring back some bone structure, or bring bone structure to him. Robert has a face. I don't know if you remember the series V. Do you remember? He was really on V. My brother actually was as an actor too, and he was on that show with Robert. That's how I first met Robert, and then ended up doing Nightmare. But I just noticed there was no real bone structure. All that scar tissue ended up just kind of being all over, and I felt it defined enough. So, and I always thought, and I've said this many times in interviews, I thought, Freddy was like a male witch, because he had a hat, with a big white brim. He had nails, which were the hands. He had a cackle, kind of a hooked nose. Robert's nose is kind of long, and so it made it nice to bend that even further down. And then I brought in contact lenses, which hadn't been done. To the whole project. And at one point, I'll tell a story with it real quickly, that we were the first day on set, and we were setting up the first shot. And my contact lens guy, who'd made several sets, but they weren't right. I kept saying, try it again, maybe I didn't know. And he finally came through, and he said, okay, I've got them. And he's running them down. We're out, an hour and a half from LA. So, and he's late. So the first shot's a wide shot. And you don't usually put lenses in until you get close. Anyway, it saves the actor's eyes and all that stuff. And Robert didn't want to wear them as least as possible. He was like, let's just. But then Bob Shea, the head of New Line, was there in the first day, nervously seeing that his new Nightmare on Elm Street was getting a good start. So he's there, and he's micromanaging everything. Yeah. He was around for some of the early meetings, but not some of the production meetings. So he was a fan of the idea of contact lenses. So he said, okay, you got the lenses, everything's ready. I said, well, they're on their way. What do you mean they're on their way? I said, well, the guy's driving them out. He made a new pair for me last night. They're going to be here any minute. And this guy, he was kind of cruel. I mean, just to be honest, there's a couple producers that are cruel, funny enough, in Hollywood. And they get, they're famous for it. And it became a thing. So I'm trying to finish up Robert's makeup, last minute touch-ups. My first day on set, my first shot with Robert, making sure everything's right. And he's screaming at me. I mean, like, just like completely counterproductive to what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to come together. I never understood this in movie business. We're all trying to come together to make a project, make it the best you can. And there are people on the project trying to shoot you down because of a power struggle level thing. And I said, Bob, they'll be here. Don't worry. And he just literally was behind me. I could feel his like hot breath on my neck as we were walking to set with Robert in front of me. And it's ever since then I said, I'm never going to let that happen again, because it gets you like, you're already nervous. And now like this, adrenaline's pumping. And so when I run into that in the future, I'll turn and face them, and I'll just get just as intense as they are. And I've done that to several people. Names, but anyway, back to Freddy's look. I added the bone structure. I wanted to give him. I went down to UCLA and got some burn manuals and really studied burn people. And okay, how do I get Freddy's look, but then bring in this realism to it? And I think what I did right, and if I could go back on the second film for me, which was Dream Warriors, and then the third. The second one, Chuck Russell the director wanted to have it look more like Robert, like he was turning back into how Robert looks normally. So I couldn't lead. I put a lot more detail in it, and I got away from the bone structure, and that I didn't like that. So by the third film for me, which was Dream Master, that one I try to bring back in part two. But I look at all three of them, I do think two is my favorite. I think it's because it was smoother. It was like less detail, more coloring and less detail, but the bone structure was there. The contact lenses were in. And I think that combination, which is like this guy back here, that's a silicone version of that makeup. Right. So I wanted to do it in silicone because I wanted to see the translucency. We have that capability, but back then it was foam latex, and we just had to paint the things on the surface. And so you had to be a really good painter to bring in the greens. You know, you get greens in your veins to bring all that
Yeah.
through, especially in a burn victim. You get, you know, you get pink and yellow and orange and weird, you know, colors. So anyways, trying to make it look as real as possible. And that is my favorite as well. I think you said it's your favorite. I think it's, from what I can tell, I've seen people voting in on things, and they come in and they seem to say that that's their favorite.
Yeah.
You know, and he certainly has gone through tons of looks. I mean, look at those later ones. He's like a full-on demon with, you know, it's everything, contact lenses and everything else. So it's a completely different look. Right? And I like the subtlety of the film. There's a whole thing, and I'm sure you've heard this. There's a whole thing about there's a undertone of how do I say this? Just a gay undertone to that film. And I never heard that before. Working on it, but the lead actor, I know, you know, he was gay, and he's had interviews. Mark has had interviews where he's said that the crew, you know, some of the set dressing people were doing things to make him, to get to him, you know, like gay bashing, basically. Right. I had no idea this was going on, and I had no idea that they were. He said there'd be things in the wall that were subtle, you know, and anyway, I don't know if that was happening, but you know, watch it now. I go, oh yeah, you can see things. It's there, but I didn't at the time. No one knew, and Jack Shoulder never thought that. Other people working on never thought that, but maybe it was something that was going on that it was subtle that we didn't know about. And back then there was a lot more gay bashing and, you know, anti anything, you know, white America. You know, people would openly, you know, rib people. I mean, I was listening to Frank Sinatra yesterday, just that he was at the Sands and on this recording, and, you know, he's kind of given it to Sammy Davis Jr. Has really good friends. He did a lot for the African Americans back then. I mean, talking about Sinatra, but he still made little jabs, and it's pretty amazing how that was just accepted back then. Anyway,
that's crazy, isn't it? So moving on from Nightmare, obviously the other thing you're really famous for is creating Chucky. So how did that come about initially? Was that just another job offered? And
well, it came through, first of all, you know, Don Mancini wrote a script, and he was a student at, I think, USC, got a hold of David Kirshner, the producer, and they began to talk. And then I think John LaFia was a friend of David's. He brought John in to do another pass at the script. So by the time I got it, I think it was called Blood Buddies at the time. And David got my name through Rick Baker. And what he has told him, this is not me speaking, this is a quote from David, that he said that Rick Baker told him that I was the next Rick Baker. Compliment or compliment to Rick himself, I don't know. But I don't know. But he said that this kid's the one, you know, he's going to, you know, be the next, you know, phase of makeup, whatever. This is what he said. So he came and told me that. Oh, that's nice to hear. And then I had the Freddy snake from Nightmare 3 and Dream Warriors, and I had that on the wall, and it was still working. This is before it was stolen. It was broken my stop and actually stole it. But anyway, and I turned it on for him, and I was able to manipulate the eyes and blinks and the cheeks and the brows and smile, and got him to say a couple of words, you know. And David was like, "That's what we need." Now they had hired Chris Wallace to do some early designs and, you know, just basically mock-ups of a Chucky, you know, some lighting on it and whatever. So they had him. I don't know what happened with that. I don't know if Chris got busy or they decided to go a different direction or whatever. I don't know. So anyway, I was brought in, and then David liked what he saw at my shop. And so I started, you know, doing some stuff. I started sculpting. I sculpted a little maquette. David did a little sketch, kind of looked more like what the Chris Wallace version was. I think he may have given that to Chris, you know, but he just threw it, and he had a painting, he had somebody do a painting for him. But they were all kind of, that painting looked more like Magic with Anthony Hopkins.
That
look to it. And anyway, and then they cast a Brad Dourif. So, you know, I knew that that's what Chucky would be turning into. So I took Brad's, you know, I actually had the idea. We kind of based the look on there was a doll out called Corky. And it was a little more auburn hair, even darker than yours, you know, like a brownish red hair.
Yeah.
He had brown eyes, you know, but it kind of had the same freckles and the same look as what I kind of took that from that doll. In fact, the kid's voice that plays the Corky's voice, the toy, ended up doing the voice of our doll too. They
really?
I got a hold of it. Well, I don't know if you heard this story, but after the film came out, mothers were bringing back these dolls to the store saying, true story. Eventually, Child's Play, because it kept going, that company went out of business. They had Corky, and they had Cricket was the female version. We kind of based it on that, and I remember I've talked about this. We go into, it was like working at Mattel. You had all these people. You had the producers, you had the director, the writers. Everyone looking at this, at what I was sculpting. I'm bringing this green sculpture. We used a Roma clay back then. It's Italian clay, oil based. And we used to use, for eye forms, to get the eye shape round ball, we would use dental acrylic, but we would use the pink dental acrylic because white was too, glaring or something. Anyway, so it kind of looked weird. Green head, pink eyes. And I kept bringing this back in. And they'd pull out the old Corky doll. No, it's Corky. And I could tell Corky had a more angled kind of look, but Chucky was soft. I gave him dimples, try to make him as cute as possible. They weren't seeing it. And I went, one thing after the other. Every meeting, I kept going back and trying to change it. And Jim Cagle actually was my sculptor, so I would work on it a little bit. Jim would work on it. And then so I brought it back in. I said, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. So I took my Corky doll. I had one version they gave me, and I pulled out all the hair. I painted it with paint green, with the green color. I stuck pink orbs in its eyes, and I brought them both back and stuck them in front of them. And they said that, okay, you're right. This is cuter. Because it forced them to the actual form and not the coloring.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So that's how it all came about. Anyway, so once we got that locked in and we picked a hair color, and I said it'd be great to go with a blue eyes, just to change it from Corky, give it a different look. They said, funny enough, Brad Dourif has got. When I looked at a newer picture of him, and they were ice cold blue. I love that.
Yeah.
And so I said, this is perfect. We'll start with more of a not royal, but a sky blue, and then we'll slowly pale them out. And so we had 5 stages of, from good guy, was I think the first, and we had 4 other stages all the way to what I call the Jack Nicholson, Brad Dourif.
Yeah.
I even kind of gave him a soft, look, a bit of a beard. He's way back there. And then, we had all kinds of, different puppet. We had insert hands, insert legs, a full cable Chucky that was our hero Chucky, and then we had a rod puppet Chuckies. We had a flailing, kicking Chucky.
Yeah.
We also had a full servo Chucky that we made. And that was a new technology to the servos. It was new to everybody. So that one was a little shaky. We used him for a couple of shots. It was more of an experiment, which I was willing to take the risk of, cutting edge of everything. So if, we all had meetings with my mechanical team, they were like, we want to do the servo thing. I thought, well, okay. So I because it's more self-contained, it's one little cord, cables coming out, and it worked for a couple of shots. And I was able to then perfect that later and use servo stuff in later Chuckies.
Yeah.
So the whole thing kind of got started for me. Again, a recommendation from Rick Baker, and then moving into finally. I keep looking over here, by the way, because hold on a second. The doll's sitting right here, so I just keep. Here it is. This is one of the original 6 that we had that Andy around with, and then you can see the skin. The skin has kind of gone a little dark, and that's just urethane rubber. So it holds up forever. This stuff will not fall apart. Bad thing is it kind of gets a little brown. And you go see, he starts. So that's basically what happens over time. His hands are. You can see how brown they are.
Yeah.
So anyway,
incredible.
These are the blue sky blue eyes, and then this paint job is basically what we took from the Corky. But then I really try to incorporate that cute mouth, and I think I got a little bit of a dimple here.
That's incredible.
In fact, the one behind me here, the one right there, one of the stunt dummies, again made of urethane. That's why it's still intact. I've got original Chucky heads, mechanical ones, but the skin is like literally like overcooked toast. It's like if you touch it, it'll just crumble. So I left them as is, and I used those heads all the way through part 3, and then with Chucky, which is over there, you can see. With Tiffany, the bride is. Sorry, just doing a little adjustment. It's all about me. With the bride, we went with different look, obviously. Silicone enhanced foam latex. On the first 3 films, it was foam latex, which is, again, it doesn't stand up very long. but it also wrinkles kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
And we went for with this. We ran them in foam, and then we removed a thin layer of foam latex off, and then put them back in the mold. Sealed that with silicone, so the new silicone wouldn't soak in. Then we put the whole back in the mold and ran silicone. So the outer layer, maybe quarter of an inch or even less, is silicone for translucency factors, and it looks like skin. Like these things are all silicone. All this stuff is silicone. But in which I use the same method on the Bill and Ted suits here too. So that when you bend them, it doesn't give you those funny wrinkles. It gives you really more like skin. So I developed that on part of Chucky, and I've used it ever since. It's a great pick.
Brilliant. Of course, you met your wife on Child's Play. Yeah.
I met my bride.
Fantastic. I'd like to talk about, if it's all right, one of my personal favourites. I remember seeing this, being really excited to see this in the cinema, and that was Sleepy Hollow. I was a big fan of Tim Burton, still am. But yeah, sort of you co-produced and wrote the story for that. Is that right?
I mean, I was it was a thing of Fable, Washington Irving wrote in whatever year that was, 1700 something. And it was American classics. You guys have the great writers, of course. We just pretend and we get it's not like England and Scotland has got amazing writers. All the good stuff comes from there. But that was the big writer of that time. Washington story. But the story is pretty simple. It's always been a favorite of mine. Of course, in what we grew up with the Disney version. Crosby, I think, sang. So I just love that story. Just always loved it. I had a storybook called that had all these great stories. Rumpelstiltskin, Sleepy Hollow. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. In this book, it was actually called I think Shirley Temple Storybook. And it was, and it's one of the key favorite stories of hers. And so I had this book for years. I actually ran across it while I was writing Sleepy Hollow in a used bookstore. It was amazing. I found it. But it influenced me. I just loved Arthur Rackman was this great artist who did these wonderful illustrations in the book, and it was so beautiful about something about that. And I wanted to do a version of that when I got out here. I first came out just to be a makeup guy. Yeah. And I got electronics. I've always been interested in puppets since I was a kid. Always had every puppet that was available, all the ventriloquist puppets, marionettes. I had a hand puppet. I was into that, makeup, all that stuff. So the fact that I got to do this is just incredible. That I got to do it when I played as a kid. And here I got to do this. It was great. So anyway, but I wanted to do that story when I started thinking about writing and directing and got into directing and Tales from the Crypt. And so I just kept that in the back of my mind. And then I got this agency from Tales that I had worked on Tales, and I directed all the wraparounds for the Crypt Keeper stuff, the opening and closing for that show. And I got to do 2 episodes, and then I got an agent, and that helped out a great deal. And they said, "Listen, what do you want to do next?" I said, "I've always wanted to do Sleepy Hollow." So we've got a young guy just came into town. He's got a hot script out. Everybody wants it, called Seven. And that guy was Kevin Walker. And Andy and I got together, and I pitched him my idea of Sleepy Hollow. I said, it can't just be the old story that's only about the chase. Ichabod Crane eats pies and food from his students' mothers. Who it was just a story, mostly about the countryside in New York at the time. Yeah. And then he had that one fateful night where he ends up getting chased off by Brahma pumpkin at it. So I said, we have to come up with something else, and I pitched him the idea of maybe he's a detective, and Andy loved that idea, because he was all about the detective work. So we just collaborated for, I think about a year at my house. He'd come over to my house, and we'd go up in my workroom, and we just write this whole story, flesh that out. And then we started going on pitching it, and I guess Scott Rudin was a fan of Andy's script 7. That was he was disappointed about that. So he told Andy, he said, "That's I don't want to be a part." So it's funny enough, I got this thing I'm writing Sleepy Hollow. Oh my God, I got to hear it. So Scott's over at my house, I'm serving him breakfast or whatever, and we're pitched Sleepy Hollow to him, and he said, "That's it, I'm in." Literally, that was, I think, on a Sunday morning, and Monday morning, I've gotten all the, Paramount attorneys are calling my office. They're set a deal. That went pretty quickly. We wrote a script. And, basically at that time, Andy said, "Listen, if you're good," and I was set to direct, I had a great deal on this movie. But he said, "If you're going to direct it, I want sole credit." And I should have just said, "Hell no, we're writing this together." But I said, "That's fine." Yeah. And he did the majority of the script writing. I mean, he put all the hours in after more than I did. But and so I was okay with it, but I should have really, I still get same royalties because I was a writer. So that was that. And then somebody, I don't know if it was Paramount made The Crucible, somebody else made The Crucible, I don't know, and it failed. This is Lewis and Winona Ryder, and it didn't do very well. So they just went, no, time periods of that time period don't work. This is how sometimes. And so they just put it on a shelf and it sat for 5 years. And Tim Burton, I was doing Bride of Chucky. Tim Burton got wind of it because he was leaving. He was going to do Superman with Nick Cage.
Yeah.
Whatever budget. So he was looking at another project. He was talking to Adam Schroeder or one of our producers, and he said, "I've got this thing," and he said, "I want to do it." So they suddenly make this deal, and but my deal was to direct, co-produce. I was an effects consultant, and I got to do all the effects. I was locked in. So my brother and from the office, I'm up in Toronto making Bride of Chucky, and he calls and he said, "I got to send you something. I'm going to fax you something right now." And it was the front of Variety saying, "Burton feels sleepy." He's all set to direct. So I call my attorneys. I'm going, wait a minute. I mean, I was excited, but also horrified that they didn't.
Yeah.
I got a hold of him, and then Tim was worried. Oh my gosh, there's a contract problem. So his guy called over and said, "Tim would like to sit down and talk with you." And I made the decision. Look, if I get the movie to direct, I'm going to get $2 million. If Tim Burton gets $60 million, he brings in Johnny Depp. It's a much bigger thing. And I was a fan. So for me, I almost worked. I had a couple of meetings with him on the Edward Scissorhands. Stan Winston ended up doing it. So I met him a couple of times, but never got to work. And I thought, I want to do this. So I had him come. He came over to my shop, and I said, "Listen, I know my contract says that first of all, I want you to do the film." And that's what he was over there. He wanted me to back off. So I want you direct the film. I said, "I won't get in your way. I'm not going to stand over your shoulder and go, that's not the way I was that stuff." So I said, you just free reign, whatever you want to do. I gave him all my material, comic books, all this research stuff I had done, which he used a lot of the stuff in the movie. And then I said, but I'm locked into doing the effects, but I want to make sure that you're comfortable. I don't want to force myself on you. It was pretty cool about that, presented it. I wanted to work with him. So I brought him over and showed him the face-off bodies, and they were breathing and twitching and stuff like that. So this is that I'll give you, so you don't have to worry. He was totally happy, and that's all. But they paid me off as a director, so they paid me my full compensation. I got to co-produce it and get credit for that. I got all these other little monies. I had a great attorney. And to this day, I still get royalties from that. And it turned out more of they brought on Tom Stoppard at one point he wrote Shakespeare in Love, and of course Gilbert and are dead. That one, the big famous play, Rosenstein's Gilderflug or something.
Yeah.
Amazing play, and he was well known, super nice guy. I talked to him on the phone several times, and they brought him in and to add some humor to it, and that's Tim's thing, and it's also Johnny Depp's thing. So, but I remember being on set, because our thing was more real, detective. It was scary, and I'm watching Johnny Depp. My brain was going, he's doing Edward Scissorhands, he's Ichabod Crane, and he's going through the set doing this kind of thing that he does, in Edward Scissorhands, like looking quirky and kind of, that. And I just thought, this is not what I wanted to do. So there was a point of adjustment for me that first day I just watched. And then later I went, that's kind of funny. That's pretty funny. And I realized, this is a Tim Burton thing. So just relax, go back to making cut off decapitated heads in the makeup room and let them do this. And it was just a personal moment for me to kind of let go of what we had. And when I saw the movie, we had to go back. Tim doesn't like to do doesn't love to do a lot of exposition. He doesn't like to do or kind of dialogue that gets too complicated. He gets frightened. He's really a visual guy. So, he just likes to tell the story all in visuals. So he would kind of cut some of the dialogue. And what happened was he ended up cutting up too much out and just didn't want to shoot it. And then they showed it in front of an audience, and the audience was confused. And so that's why the Richardson scene in the end, when she comes back and explains everything, it's a big no-no for a writer to make lists of what happened. If you can't get it while you're watching it, you've made a mistake. So I cringe when I see that scene. But now I've gotten used to it, and it is what it is, and it's really kind of a Halloween favorite, now. So I'm just, it's just like anything. You got to get used to, it's not what you thought it would be. And that's
Yeah.
being an artist, painting, sculpting. You want things to be just the way you envision them. And so when someone changes them, or, film is a collaborative effort. So when someone changes them, you get a little bit of broken heart, but then if you're smart, you adjust and you don't let it eat you alive.
It felt to me like a modern Hammer film. Watching it, it's very stylized. I mean, Rick Heinrich's production designer.
And that, yes, Rick Heinrich is the Academy Award for that, and he's amazing. I worked on it with him on Lemony Snicket.
Yes.
And the sets were amazing. There were sets that we never even get to see the detail. I mean, he does forced perspective all the time, practical. Meadows that go off, or a train. The train track will start normal size, and then slowly you can't even perceive that it's changing sizes till it's only 20 feet away, but it looks like it's 2 miles away. In the graveyard of Sleepy Hollow, they're all sitting there looking at the dead bodies. They have them all exhumed, and he's looking at, and he finds the widow Winship, and he's that she's been pregnant and all that stuff. But at the graveyard, you've got little plastic sheep way off. They look like they're a mile, 2 miles away, and he was just brilliant at that stuff. I mean, I saw this village seaport set on the set of Lemony Snicket. That was everything from the rocking chairs that were this big, and again they're 10 feet away, but the house is perfect, and there's little rocking chairs on it, and then you go into the company store, this little village store, and there's all this stuff from an older period of time, but you never get to see this stuff. It's never even shot. The guy's crazy good, and so we have to get him on, and then Chivo, our DP, did a fantastic job, and Manuel Levesky. Yes, I'm bad with names. By the way, I'm on this ketogenics diet, which I've been able to lose some pounds. The problem is you don't get enough salt. It's like a weird thing. Get names, and that's been happening about last month. So it's either that or Alzheimer's. I don't.
Hope not. We hope not.
The latter.
Excuse me. So obviously, Bill and Ted Face the Music, should be released. It's getting some really good reviews. It's getting some great reactions. A lot seems to be able to work on the makeup, especially people pointing out the old age makeup. Old Bill and Ted. It is some of the greatest work for old age makeup I've seen on film. It is absolutely stunning. And sort of like the suits what are behind you as well. In a lot of films, they could seem, like you said before, you get certain creases on bodysuits and stuff like that, but it's seamless. So congratulations on that. That's absolutely brilliant.
I love you. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, so Bill and Ted, you've done all three, is that right?
I got the producers that did Elm Street 2, Joel and Michael Murphy, called me up, and I also did The Hidden with them. They produced The Hidden, and I think the third one either was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Anyway, they called me up and said, "Listen, we need some quick cavemen." They were already way into shooting, and they just got written by the writers, Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson, same two writers that wrote all three, and they said they were in a scene where they go into prehistoric time, and we want to have them run into some cavemen. I said, okay, great. Now, they're in Arizona shooting. I'm in LA. They said, we don't have any casting people there. Do you know anybody who could play these parts? Well, I had a couple of actor friends. One was a friend of mine from Ohio, just happened to be visiting, and he had this kind of look already, kind of a little bit, like he had just a masculine jaw and all that. So I asked him and another guy that I said, listen, another actor friend, you guys want to do this? So we kind of dressed him up, put some mud on him, threw some rabbit skins on him or something, and they kind of acted, in front of, took a videotape of him, sent it to the producers. They said, great, cast him. So I went ahead and did these Neanderthal makeups on him, caveman. So it's seen like, unfortunately, it's seen so quickly, they come and go at the very, towards the end of the movie. So that was my first experience. When I met Keanu, I was on set, Jane Wheaton from the Go-Go's. I got to meet her. She was playing Joan of Arc, I think. And so, and Keanu, Keanu was, I think, I was 21, 22, so he must have been 20 or 19. They're just young, they just, Alex hadn't done Lost Boys. I got to go on set and do a couple weeks on Lost Boys. That was my first movie. Ear pierced on Lost Boys. And I actually did Alex's makeup for a day. I could put some bass.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Just when he was appearing normal. And then, so then I got a different set of producers, but I got called back. I met Scott Kroof, who was also on the first one. And Scott called me back to do Bogus Journey. And that was hellacious because I was just getting really a lot of work. I had 5 shows down. I remember somebody said Steve Johnson, another effects guy that's in our business, was complaining to his crew that, Kevin Yagher's got every damn show in town. And that was one of them. And unfortunately I had there was a lot of work going on. And so mechanically, there wasn't a whole lot of people around. I had to kind of put together this ragtag mechanical group of guys. Did a fine job, but it was just a tougher show. I had the elite with Chucky, and as it came in, all the guys I had were gone in other shops. So I had to kind of put together new guys and stuff. And that was really rough. And there was just so much stuff. And there was the good robots, the bad robots, the evil robots. There were, 2 stations, and then the big station. There was a bunny that started out little, then ended up being big. And that big bunny got cut out of the film. But there was just all this stuff. Makeups on that. Again, some of you see, some you don't. I did Granny Preston on Alex again for that one. Zipper faces that. At one point they go, hey, they show up at Bill and Ted, and these are the evil ones, they think, or something, but they unzip their front of from their hairline down to about here. Peels off the other guy's skin, and Bill's inside of Ted's inside of Bill. They put that together, they showed it to the audience, and they were like, we don't understand why that just happened. Gag, it was supposed to be a gag, it didn't work. So there's a lot of stuff hit the cutting room floor. So I did that, and then after that, there was talk about doing a third, a year or 2 later. I don't know how Bogus Journey did. I don't know if it did great or not. And then just kind of course, Keanu's career is, he's doing Speed, and next thing you know, he's out of our ballpark where we can't even get to this guy. Alex went off to England, I think to London, and started. It was like one of the commercial directors there. I heard this is the that came back. He since has come back. He just did this thing. I think it's on Netflix called Showbiz Kids, and it's all people like the ET guy. How these young kids start, and then sexual harassment and getting from a child actor all the way through. It's a really nice place. So he's been doing documentaries for the past 5-10 years or something. Anyway, so 10 years ago, I got a call from Alex, and he said, hey, we're looking to do, he may have still been in London, I don't know. He said, we're looking to do Bill and Ted 3. It's called Face the Music. And it's pretty much the same script that the one they shot now. So we talked for a while. I gave him a bid. We were, on the phone every week for, about a month or so. And then suddenly it kind of just drifted away. It got shelved, basically. They couldn't get the money together, and it went away. And now that was 12 years ago. Then I see it suddenly on the TV, 2 years ago. Hey, it's gonna get made. Bill and Ted. So I called up, or I actually emailed Alex and said, hey, is this real? He said, yeah, it looks like it's gonna happen eventually. I gotta be a part of it. Come on. He said, okay, let me get a hold of Scott, because I had lost touch with Scott Kroof and all this stuff. So Scott emailed me, and I went out and we already have a director, Dean Pariseau, and he did a Galaxy Quest and Fun with Dick and Jane, which I love those 2 films. And so I met in a coffee shop, and we're doing meetings at coffee shops and sometimes Dean's house, back and forth. And then I knew that Bill Corso, makeup man who had worked for Steve Johnson on Freaked and applied Alex's makeup on Freaked, and that was a movie that Alex actually directed too. So they were in touch, and so Bill was going to be the head of the makeup department, which I love because Bill and I worked together before. He did some applications on a TV show called Bones, with David and Emily Deschanel, and so I loved him, Bill. So that was great, and he knows his way around prosthetics. So it's like, okay, great. He can help me with some of these makeups, apply some of these makeups. It's not like a lot of times straight makeup department heads don't know anything, and you're left on your own. It was great to have. I could design something like that. We had these fun demon designs. This is one of them here from. You can make sure from Bill and Ted, early design, but it was kind of complicated with the horns, and it was a little costly. So we ended up doing simpler things. I just thought, well, you've kind of seen this look before, but I thought, let's get some big, heavy set guy. I got a picture of a wrestler, wrestler, and I put some horns on him and some blood and dirt and point ears, and then we put him in a leather, naked except for this leather apron. So I sent that to Bill, and he kind of took that and did his own thing. And then the writers end up getting cameos as those two. So anyway, that's how that happened. And I was assigned that. I was assigned Dennis the robot. I was assigned the Neanderthal woman, Paleolithic woman. I always have a hard time saying, basically, and a bunch of things. And then, when they finally got the money going, I was down to such a short prep time, and I had all this on my plate, and I thought, I don't want to mess this stuff with Bill and Ted up. Definitely, I have to put all my that. I haven't done age makeups, and I love doing age makeup, so I said I don't want to mess that up. I don't want to mess the suits up. I said let me think about this, and I knew when I approached him and told him, look, I think I'm going to step back from the robot, because building a robot, a good one, is like building a car. Everything has to be sculpted, and there's lights on it. All the fabric so it doesn't hurt the actor. So much technical stuff going into that suit. And I thought, if I'm going to give up anything, it's going to be that, because I can't give up anything with Bill and Ted. So I came to the producer, Scott, and I said, listen, I got to tell you something. This is hard, but now that we just got started, I'm down to like 6 weeks prep or, whatever. Yeah. I got to give, but don't worry. Got several people that we're going to go after. And he kind of turned white, and Dean found out. I was like, okay, what's this mean? So we had a meeting about it. I said, listen, there's three people. Jose Fernandez I first contacted because he does all the superhero suits. He does all the Black Panther stuff. He's just amazing. He's the go-to guy. In fact, I think he designed our Headless Horseman outfit. Calling that the wardrobe supervisor on Sleepy Hollow. So I knew him, and I contacted him, and he was just getting started. I think he's still building stuff for Master of the Universe, I think. Yeah. So that's underway, and he is expensive because he's very, one of the top guys in town, if not the top. So that didn't kind of work out money-wise, and so my second choice was Steve Wang. Steve sculpted the original Predator suits with Stan Winston. Right. Brilliant. He's a brilliant designer, sculptor, and he had just started a new makeup effects company. He's been working in and out of the business for years, doing a lot of stuff for gaming, things, doing big display stuff. He's just, again, great. So I knew he'd be interested. I knew he'd do a great job. And then we met with Stan Winston's old guys, Legacy Effects, and I just favored Steve because I knew these guys were very big. Legacy is just huge. Their shop is 10 times the size of mine, and they just they're working all the time. And I just felt that they may be more tired, maybe they wouldn't focus. I don't know. It was just being a shop owner myself, I thought, let's just step back and maybe go to a guy that I know. Steve wouldn't let them down. I knew I could just literally shut the door and let him do this. And so I begged them. I really begged them. And then we went to Legacy. They hadn't gone to the food shop. They ended up at Legacy's. They said, well, Legacy's it. Let's just give it to them. We saw they've got tons of robots. And I stopped outside. I said, look, these guys will do a great job. I recommended them. But I highly recommend Steve. I just think I feel better about it. And in unbelievable 6 weeks, Steve built this robot that, the actor, Anthony Carrigan did a great job. He's really sweet. And the character was always fun in the script. I always gave him one read the lines because I love it. He's just insecure. He was human to a fault, literally. Like I program him to be as human as possible. Yeah. He makes mistakes and then kills people he wasn't supposed to kill. He does a fantastic job. So anyway, Steve put together this wonderful suit, and so I did that, and then I was able to focus on the fat belly for Keanu. This is the fat belly. And then the old age makeups. These are two makeup tests. So they're test the makeup and the color on the look by putting the appliances onto their forms. And so, and then this is Alex Winter's chest. And Alex, when we first started meeting, he said, listen, I want to look like a gorilla. I mean, I want to be just abnormally large. And he kept sending me pictures of gorillas, and I kept thinking to myself, does he want me to make him look like hair and everything? And no. I want that inspiration in your head. Yeah. So abnormally large, kind of ridiculous. I mean, it makes his head look like really tiny. He's got at least this much thickness, maybe around his arm. Now, one thing that we had to do was make sure that we had zippers in the back to get him in and out of these suits in record time, open them up to cool them off. We are in New Orleans heat. It's 98 degrees. The humidity is almost the same.
Yeah.
I mean, people in shorts and t-shirts and they're dripping sweat. These guys are in 15 to 20 pound suits, sealed up in silicone. Good thing with the underside is foam, so it was absorbing all the sweat. The bad part is that after 2 hours, now the suit is 35 pounds. Just with sweat. Both guys had back issues. Alex has a back issue. Alex had 2 motorcycle accidents, and I think they both have something with their spine's been fused or something. So they had back issues, and I had to put a belt on, like a back support belt on Alex. Keanu was okay with it. I thought for sure, we were going to lose him. One of the guys were going to pass out. By the way, they both have bulb caps on, which keeps 80% of your heat in. So it's really unimaginable. In a cold, ice cold, stage, they would be sweating their butts off. And these guys we just do a take, and they're very physical. They're doing all this kind of movement, and they'd have to sit and wait and pause, and we'd look at them and you okay? And of course their bulb caps are sliding up, coming off, and it was like one of the hardest days on set, to shoot this stuff. Very hard. But we got through it. And then we had to take the suits back because we could only afford one pair of suits. By the way, 2 weeks before the film even started shooting, they were going to pull the plug on it. That's how up and we lost a finance person, pulled out, and then they had the producer had to scramble around and get another person to put. It was kind of one of those shows. So we only could afford one suit, so we would take it back. There's a trick where you take any suit that Dana Carvey, I did a Master of Disguise, used to take his suits and you'd soak them in vodka. You just go down to the store and you get cheap vodka and you'd squeeze them under water, under vodka water or whatever, and you squeeze them all out and then soak it and then basically let them drip dry. And by morning they were almost all the way dry. I mean, like very damp at the bottom. And then we had to put those back onto the stunt guys or the doubles, because they had to shoot over the muscle suits onto the Alex and Keanu as Bill and Ted normal. So they'd go back and forth in the cutting. So we did them first, Alex and Keanu in the suits, and then I squeezed them, cleaned them, sterilized them, got all the bacteria out, and then put these other guys in them. And then I had to do the same thing that same other night because I wanted to bring them back. And if I don't clean them and sterilize them, by the time they LA, because we were in New Orleans again, they would be walking themselves. They would like take that bacteria out of there.
Well, see, sort of the industry as a whole, starting in the 80s, I know in interviews before you've said that you had a lot more freedom, creative freedom in the 80s. Is it obviously with the sort of enhancements in CGI, and I think sometimes CGI used as almost a cheap tool rather than, has there been a big drop off for practical effects, do you think?
There has, and then it's gone kind of like back and forth. Like when it first came about, scared the crap out of all of us. I mean, I think one of the first things I saw, the water tentacle in the abyss, and thought, no, that's not a creature. It was, but it wasn't. And then I saw it was a dragon heart, and a talking dragon with, Dennis Quaid, that movie, and it just started creeping in. And certainly, Lord of the Rings with the little guy, what's his name?
Gollum, yeah.
Gollum. And so Gollum was like, oh my God, because they're using Andy Serkis. They've got dots all over him. He's doing the thing, and he's really looking like he's acting. And that was pretty amazing. And that scared us all. Certainly Jurassic Park 2 was kind of frightening. But, Stan Winston went back, who did all the practical, dinosaurs for Jurassic. And he went back in and he counted the amount of time and how much shots, practical stuff was used. And he said that I think it was like 2/3 practical to the other part. But he said, hey, we're still in the game. And that was kind of like the change. That was the first time we really saw a threat, but then it kind of got great because writers would write anything they wanted to. They weren't locked. Okay, if this is going to be a practical effect, it's going to be too expensive. I can't write that, right? Now they were free to write anything. And so we got a lot more work at the initial 2 to 5 years. And then they started getting better and better and better. I mean, I still think that the CGI, especially early CGI, is not, you go back and look and go, wow, that's pretty crude, but is still got issues. Like people call it too bubblegummy, there's too much or whatever. It's too smooth. There's not flaws in it, all that kind of stuff. But they're going to get better and better and eventually put us out of business. I think things like Alec loved to be in this suit because he said, look, I don't have the strength that this guy has that I'm showing, but the good thing is I feel the weight, and it makes me act a certain way, right? When you're in a makeup, you get to look in the mirror in your trailer, before you actually go on, you're getting changed into the wardrobe or whatever, and you get to practice a little bit, and you get to see yourself and you feel. I mean, I've heard actors say, I always want to put this stuff on, as long as it's good. A bad makeup can really put us out of business. People, doing bad makeup, and there's a lot of good artists out there, and I think there's a lot of good work. I mean, I'm on Instagram, and they're at Yagher Effects, by the way, on Instagram. I'm seeing great work. There's a lot of great artists out there. So I'm hoping we stay in the game a little longer. I know that they, certainly, in parts of the Caribbean, the Davy Jones or whatever, that one character, Squid Face, famous actor, he had dots in his face. And, he was okay with that. And of course, how would you do that? I think they did do a mechanical work out. So there's things like that they can just do better. And I'd like it not to go away. There are directors like, Guillermo del Toro, who loves practical effects. He was a practical effects guy himself. So he's going to always hold on to stuff like that. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I think television, certainly the stuff I did on Bones, we could not have done. CGI would have cost too much. I think in a budget like this, like Bill and Ted, there's no way they could have do this, digitally. It would have been building an entire character, 3D, it would have taken months and months. And we'll do it cheaper. That's the one thing we got going for it. But I always like a combination, they were able to, the zippers in the back, we couldn't put a blending, normally we'd blend it off everything, but we had to be able to backs up, so we couldn't blend that off. And so we left it, and the CGI guys came in, with their magic wand and kind of if they ever saw the zipper from behind, they would just go back in and kind of fill that information in. But so I think, like if you remember in Planet of the Apes, the Rick Baker, Tim Burton one, the lead male, gorilla character, he would extend his jaw way beyond what and so the combinations, I think, the best thing, or clean up things and also extend things, and maybe green screen things. You make a werewolf with a dog leg, you do with the actor on stilts, and then you just green screen out his leg. It's kind of combinations, or enhance things to make up for mistakes, bad seams, bad coloring. I hope it just keeps going on, and we stay partners. But eventually, I think it's going to end up going away.
It's a shame, because I grew up on stuff like Rick Baker's work on American Welfare London, and when they announced they were doing the Wolfman remake, I was so excited because Rick Baker was doing it, and then the CGI, majority of it, in the same way that when they did the prequel to The Thing, and I know ADI were doing it, and they showed the behind the scenes stuff of the practical stuff, and it was phenomenal. But then again, they just.
I also think once you make a decision to do it with half CGI, whether you go with the CGI looks better or smoother, more bubblegummy or whatever, maybe it points out that there's flaws in the practical effects, or the director has to make a decision because he doesn't want to do both. One cancels out the other, or you can, like when we did Face Off, they said, we just want you to build John Travolta. He's heavier set than Nick. Nick's got this Con Air body, John, and he's turned into Nick Cage. So we just want to fake John Travolta. And I said, listen, let me talk you into this. I'm going to be doing close-ups of them anyway. They're right over here, by the way. I keep looking over because behind you. But, and they're from the belly button all the way up. There's no hands on. There's just two pieces here. Yeah. But I said, if I'm doing that already, let me build a fake Nick, because when you bring those bodies in together, if you bring a real body with a fake. I just was preparing myself. You want to have two things come at the same time. So maybe in this case, and then they went for that. I was able to make two bodies. But in this case, if you compare something to CGI in the next shot, and the style is different, or moves or jiggles different, or does have a jiggle that we can't put in, or something, people will accept practical effects if they're done well. I do believe that. Yeah. But I think we combine them wrongly. With too much of one thing, and you see immediately after the same thing. You just start making judgment calls, and I think the directors, last minute, and they cut all that stuff out. I mean, they were just devastated that all this stuff, and I have seen that beautiful work,
So they went on to do Harbinger Down, didn't they? They did a Kickstarter.
Yeah, I mean that was his directing thing, and he just used all that stuff. Because he couldn't stand the fact that it was being unused. So at least they got to see.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. What's next for you? Are you allowed to say what's possibly next for yourself?
I've been talking to. No, I'm not. It was David Kirshner and Don Mancini got a hold of me about doing the Chucky series, but that's out. I couldn't. I was able to make a money deal with them. Was able to make schedule. Everything was going to work out great. They agreed to everything. Money was tight, and so I said, "Listen, if it's okay, I can make this price work if I can use the old Chucky stuff." Now in my contracts, and from the agents, you had contracts that said you keep everything for trade secrets. You keep it all. People loosened up on that, but I still own all the stuff that I have. I mean, possession of it. I don't own the rights to look, but I own possession of it, and I do have some royalties. I haven't seen $1 on that, but on Chucky. But so anyway, so they and everything was smooth. But when it came down, when I get the lawyers who entered the picture, and they want to make sure they're protecting Universal, they basically have it where the moment that it hits into a truck to go to Toronto, that they could number one fire me. I mean, on the spot. Right to do that. They could whether even show up on set or not, just to save money on me. I don't know. They could they keep everything as long as they saw fit. I mean, it could be gone out of my possession for 20 years. And it started feeling not right. And I just said no. And we went back to the negotiating table for 2 months solid because I really wanted to come back. The whole idea was that the whole old team came back. David, me, Catherine, my wife, was going to do a part on it. It was all going to be, and then they approached me and said, "We really want you back." And so I said, "Great, I just need to use this stuff. But this stuff belongs to me. I need it after the first season. I need to bring it to protect it, and then we can go back and we can negotiate season. If you want to negotiate 5 seasons, we can do that now. No, we just want to do 1, but we want to keep it in case it went to 12, 15 years in Vancouver." And I still use some of the joysticks. I use some of those parts, the slave systems and stuff. So I couldn't give it up. And they just suddenly didn't want to bend. The attorney said no. And so I couldn't make the deal. So that was in the works, last year, just before COVID. I've got a couple of things. I made a short film that I did a Kickstarter campaign on, that I built this creature and called Grummy. It's a sensitive issue about child abuse and how the sort of saves this child's life in a sense. It's a short, but it's to raise money for a feature film. I've been there's things I can't talk about, that I've been back and forth with, but right now I can tell you, secretly maybe, but not. But so there's just stuff like that I've been doing. So so COVID's had a hit on everybody. So we're just now friends are just now getting, going overseas to work on things. So it's tough. It's been tough 6 months. So trying to get the garden done. I don't know, whatever.
Grow a beard. Just before we sort of wrap things up, I was wondering, is there anything sort of like classically, is there anything that you haven't been able to do yet, or that you'd really like to reinvent, such as like sort of Frankenstein's monster, or is there anything you sort of always wanted to sort of have a go at putting your stamp on?
I mean, funny. I mean, there's a new gorilla movie out that Disney did. I can't remember the name. It's all CGI. I'd love to do a gorilla suit. Rick Baker, when he was working, was doing everything. I mean, once you get, I got known as the guy that did bodies. So I do Starship Troopers and Face Off and Team Talkers and all that stuff. Or you're the guy that does, hopefully I'll be known as the guy that does old ages now, but there's so many people who can do it. So he had the market on gorilla suits, and even people since then have made their own, and they can't get used. I mean, there's one not so good suit that's out there now in a commercial, but the people, you get these little jobs. I'd love to have done that, a gorilla suit. And certainly anything, classic monster remakes would be great. There's a lot of competition now. A lot of young people work out of their garages and very small studios. And I went in for This Is Us episode, and to do a couple of preemie babies, and a friend of mine, a guy who's done them for the show before, just swept in. He's already got 7 of them. They're ready to. I was going to build them from scratch. My price was way low, but I still couldn't compete with him because he was basically renting them now, and people are doing a lot of renting things out. So, and there's so much, product out there. Like, I've got 50 bodies next door. I can't rent. because there's people who have got, better bodies or more developed, full naked bodies than mine are, not full naked or something. So there's just a lot of competition, stuff like that. But, I don't know. That I haven't done, I don't know. I'd love to do more makeups, I love old age makeup. I'd love to do even more of that, that stuff. But I'd like to actually work with Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he just seems like a guy that would do anything for the makeup project. If you remember Hannibal, the character he played in Hannibal, he was taking his eyelids and stretching them up over his forehead, and taking his lip. He's into, like Lon Chaney, the original Lon Chaney used to put things in his eyes and pull his face down. And that's pretty amazing, but I'd love to work with him. I'd like to work with certain men that they don't able to work with. But as far as creature stuff, I don't know. It's hard to say because I don't know if I'd love to do a werewolf movie. I don't think they should ever redo American Werewolf. Maybe the house. The house. The house. I don't know how well that holds up, but maybe it does. But I still would watch American Werewolf every now and then because it was one of the films that's the point where I was in high school, and that film was like young people. This guy named Rick Baker and a bunch of young people are doing this out of just a little warehouse, and I said, if they can do, I can be a part of that. That was the big thing too. So I don't know if they should. If that stuff still holds up, for the most part, it holds up still, and it's practical. It's great. But it would be nice to like a classic werewolf film or something like that. Creature oriented. Because I got pigeonholed into burn makeups, doll bodies, and it's just like typecasting an actor. You're that guy. Yeah. And it's hard then to get other films, and certainly all the creature stuff would go to either Stan Winston or Rick Baker. And now Stan passed away and Rick's retired, so you think, hey, now's my chance. And then the world's changed with CGI. So it's kind of like there's a lot less work. There's a lot of TV work. There's a lot of makeup work. There's still a lot of prosthetic work. And there's a lot of work within TV and stuff like that. But I'm still working. I'm still out there doing my thing. But, I'm also looking at retirement and things like that, eventually. But I'm still hanging in there for a little longer. We'll see what happens.
Good. I'm glad.
Too long where I'm out there with a cane, trying to, I don't want to be doing it.
Brilliant. And just one last thing was just a little plug for yourself. You're selling off some of your old creations, aren't you?
KevinYagher.com and then to the store category. And I tell people, look, when you go there, a lot of people go on an auction. There's a lot of auction houses. And I looked into that. They wanted a lot of money, and it ended up bringing the price down for me. And I thought, why don't I just stick these things on for what I think they would go? Yeah. And like probably a 20 to 30% of what I have already. And I've got a lot more things to sell. It's going to be pricey. People are going to say, well, $6,000 for that. But if you put it on an auction website or an auction place running it live, they'll go up to those prices because people get to this frenzy. Yeah. So posting, and if someone sees something and they want to make me an offer that's less, I say, make me an offer. Go ahead and make me an offer and see. Maybe if I'm in a good mood, I'll let that go. I'm not selling things that like the Chuckies just yet because I know that stuff is the highest priced. The more popular things. So I'm kind of holding off on that, and then I got the face-off bodies because I still use those to display stuff. It's the stuff I have in storage that I pulled out all down, and that Alec may have moving around. We got to see a few of those things. So I'll just be selling. Usually, if I have a lull in time, I'll break out a few more things, but. But you can go on the website and check out and see if you something there. There's a lot of Bill and Ted things that are up. I know they're kind of pricey, but I'm figuring, hey, we'll see. We'll see what I can get for them. We try to get what they want to pay the lease, so I understand all that. But eventually, I'll have to go because I'm not going to dump it on my daughter. Rick Baker, I was over his house, a year ago, and he was showing me he had bought the house next door to him, and he's got a whole basement full of the elite stuff, and he kept a lot of primo pieces or whatever. A lot of them are just for display. Michael Jackson's there with thriller zombies and stuff, and he got rid of a lot of stuff. He had an auction, sold a lot, and then I said, "What about all this stuff? You still have a lot of stuff." He said, "Well, that's not going to be my daughter's problems. He's got 2 daughters, so I dumped it on sell it after I go." People have talked about putting things in museums. I think that's a great idea, but it just doesn't seem that people can't get the financing for it. There's a lot of talk about it. There's the Hollywood Museum here, but they do costumes and different things. But it'd be great to do a monster museum. It'd be fantastic. If someone could raise the money to do that, and you could maybe the museum would pay you for the permanent piece, whatever. From then you could get rid of it and it could stay in a museum for years and years and years. I think it would be kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Always money, right?
That's it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And good luck with the future.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, take care. Thank you.